Even after she had left the hardware store, she still had dreams about it. On November 21st, 2019, Elizabeth Connie died peacefully at the Emeralds of Faribault at the age of 97. Dolores survived by daughters Corinne Connie and Kendra Conkey, daughter-in-law Vicki Connie, son-in-law Bob Colas, sister-in-law Eunice Gasner, grandchildren Brett, Roy, Craig, and Libby, Sam and Emily Conkey, Kathleen and Kenny Connie, great-grandchildren Ian and Carmen Conkey, and countless cousins, nieces, and relatives. She was preceded in death by Kennard, her husband, son Kevin. Let me say that again. She was preceded in death by her husband Kennard, her son Kevin, and daughter Karen Coles. Blessed be the memory of Laura Connie. Well, you know, we read that, and that's kind of statistical and kind of boring, and not boring, but it just gives us statistics. But now we have a time of family sharing when family will share, and we'll put some more layers on Delora. So, Kathleen, are you ready?
Hi everyone, can you hear me? Thanks for coming. I feel blessed to be able to celebrate my Grandma Delora's long, prosperous life of 97 years. I had the honor of knowing 3 out of my 4 grandparents during their lifetimes, and out of all of them I got to spend the most time on this earth with my Grandma Delora. Delora was born in 1922, the year insulin was invented, the year Gandhi was imprisoned, the year the Irish Civil War broke out. Ulysses by James Joyce was published in 1922, and F. Scott Fitzgerald set the story of the Great Gatsby in the year 1922. Reader's Digest was published for the first time in 1922, which is extra fitting because Granny loved Reader's Digest, and she was still reading it the week she died, but with a magnifying glass. The biggest singer on the radio in 1922 was Fanny Brice, and the most popular car on the streets was the Mercer Roadster. That was for Kenneth. There were more photos of Delora's grandchildren and great-grandchildren taken in the last hour than exist of her entire childhood. When I was a tot in the late 1990s and Mom and Big Ol' Pop lived at 116 across from the park in Waseca, I loved to sit at Grandma Delora's kitchen table and watch her mix up cookie dough and bake bread. She was always working hard while I ate cheese slices out of the fridge and played with the giant clothespin that they kept their coupons pinched in, and listened to the radio. I was very young when they lived there, so a lot of it is just a colorful blur to me. The dramatic lake mural in their bedroom, and the scary steep staircases, and the green, gold, red, and orange furniture. I always hear tales about the elaborate 4th of July parties they would host in the park. My mom met my dad at one of those 4th of July parties. I remember helping Grandma Delora put food out for all the alley cats. The cats would watch us from the bushes and then scamper up the back stairs when they heard the kibble and the table scraps fall onto the pan. Grandma was always looking after the strays, especially the stray people. Taking in people who were down on their luck and making sure people in her community were okay was second nature to her. I loved when my dad would take me to visit Grandma Delora at Charlie's hardware store when she was working. I loved watching her mix paint and make keys. I loved going up to the secret office above the store that smelled like coffee. I loved running up and down the paint aisle, flapping the color sample cards in my hand, looking at all the grills and sitting on all the mowers. The best smell in the whole world is a hardware store. I live in St. Paul now, but I still buy my sweaters at Fleet Farm and Ace. Just for the smell. When our grandparents sold their house and moved closer to us in Faribault, we got to see them a lot more often. Multiple times a week, we got the chance to come over after school to eat cheese balls in the pantry, peel potatoes, bake cookies, and make snack mix. They had downsized quite a bit, so there was lots of space to run around, and I loved laying on the floor reading their encyclopedias all afternoon. We liked to pick songs out of the stacks of sheet music on the piano bench, and Granny would play them for us on the piano. Grandma Delora religiously watched the news and would relay the saddest stories she heard. House fires, children with terminal illnesses, orphaned ducklings, war stories, the worst of the worst. I think this was her way to make sure that we didn't take anything for granted. Kenneth and I were just a little bit spoiled as kids, just a little bit. We were the only small kids in the family at that time, really, so we always had a huge pile of Christmas gifts and way more attention than we knew what to do with. On Christmas Eve, before we got our gifts, Grandma Delora would sit me down next to her on the piano bench and whip out the music for a little song called "The Little Boy That Santa Claus Forgot." She would clink out the tune on the piano, and then rather than sing the song with me, she would take the music and hold it out in front of me like a storybook. She would slowly and pointedly read me the lyrics of this song, line by excruciating line. Since Christmas is just around the corner, I thought we could revisit those lines today. Christmas comes but once a year for every girl and boy, the laughter and the joy they find in each new toy. I'll tell you of a little boy who lives across the way. This little fella's Christmas is just another day. He's the little boy that Santa Claus forgot, and goodness knows he didn't want a lot. He sent a note to Santa for some soldiers and a drum. It broke his little heart when he found Santa hadn't come. In the streets he envied all those lucky boys, then wandered home to last year's broken toys. I'm so sorry for that laddie, he hasn't got a daddy, the little boy that Santa Claus forgot. I was always completely sobbing by the end of that lesson. No matter where she lived, Granny knew all of her neighbors. Even in her final years at the nursing home, she knew everybody and easily made friends. Usually I try my best to not interact with my neighbors, but Granny was the type to faithfully check up on the people who surrounded her. In 2020, as a New Year's resolution in my grandma's memory, I'm going to strive to be a better neighbor. In one of the most famous passages of the book of Matthew, chapter 22, Jesus has a conversation that is considered to be a version of the Golden Rule. In an antagonizing way, someone asks him, "Master, which is the greatest commandment in the law?" Jesus said unto him, "Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like unto it. Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets."
Thank you, Kathleen. You did very, very well. Doreen shared a memory, and the situation would be that it might not be able to read it, so she asked if I would share with you. And it says, how do you condense 97 years of a life well lived in a few minutes, especially when remembering a remarkable woman like Mom or Laura? She was born a daughter, sibling, granddaughter, niece, cousin, and became a wife, mother, grandmother, aunt, great-grandmother, great-aunt, and always a friend to anyone she met. Between graduating from high school and getting married, she was part of a youth caravan group. They had their training at Morningside College in Iowa, then in smaller teams traveled to churches in Kansas and Missouri to help with Bible teaching. Growing up on a farm, she was accustomed to hard work. When she lived in Waseca for over 56 years, shoveling snow, raking leaves, and mowing lawn were done in addition to working at the hardware store. Laundry was done with a wringer washer and hung outside summer and winter. Bread was baked regularly. The cookie jar was always full, usually with chocolate chip cookies. Mom and Dad were the Minneapolis Star Tribune distributors for many years, and to this day, one of the newsboys has kept in contact with her. When he called me recently, he recalled how when they came to get their papers in the garage, they were given hot chocolate in the wintertime. Remembering the friendship of 70 years ago that meant so much to me. Mom was the hostess with the mostest. Preparing for a crowd of 20 to 100 did not faze her. For large crowds, she'd make egg coffee, something I never learned to do. She never had a dishwasher and always said she didn't mind doing dishes. When I entered the Peace Corps in 1967, Mom needed something to take her mind off of me being gone. When I returned 2 years later, she kept working. Kendra was not happy when Mom went to work as she came home to an empty house. An opportunity for employment at the corner Coast to Coast store, and then Charlie's changed her life until she was 80. She loved to work and left because she and Dad moved to Fairville. At some point, Mom also started walking 3 miles a day, which she did until age 80. Mom and Dad were able to travel and see much of the United States. The trips often included my aunt and uncle, complete with giggles and card games. Highlights of their travels included Alaska, Washington, D.C., California, and Texas, which included going to Tijuana, Mexico. Mom always took notes of their trips, which came in handy when a discussion about dates or events arose. Mom won spelling bees in school, and her vocabulary interest continued throughout her life. Late night Scrabble games were common and competitive. The past few years, she enjoyed her word search books, which she seemed to devour. Mom had a good sense of humor, loved a good joke, and had her wit with her to the end. While going through the pictures, I found notepads full of jokes she had written down. Phyllis Diller had nothing on Mom. And Mom played the piano until she was 93 and moved to the nursing home. In high school, she also played the alto horn. Her favorite music to play or listen to would be hymns, followed by a good Sousa March or a Scott Joplin rag. Summer concerts in the park and the Mankato Symphony Quarry concerts were special events. Mom had perfect penmanship and was wonderful correspondent who remembered all birthdays and anniversaries. The night before she died, she signed a sympathy card, but she wanted to practice first. Her practice signature was better, and I'm sorry I didn't say that. Yes, she was a remarkable woman who had enough love to share and lived an exemplary life until the day of her 97-plus year. She was a special person to so many, and we were lucky to have her around for a long time. You are loved and missed and will be remembered for all that you did. Love you and goodbye, Gigi. He said it was through what his son did that God cleared a path for everything to come to him. All things in heaven and on earth. For Christ's death on the cross has made peace with God for all by his blood. What a wonderful explanation. You know, we could read and think about that. It was through what his son did, what Jesus did, that God cleared that path. Like God got on a big bulldozer and just put every objection out of the way. And now we can come to God because of the cross, because of what Jesus did. When Jesus died on the cross, that was the only payment that God would accept. In Galatians 1 and 4 says, in order to free us from this present evil world, Christ took the punishment for our sins, because that was what our God and Father wanted. The plan was there. It was God. Christ's death on the cross has made peace with God for all. Nobody's excluded. It's available to all. And then in verse 21, he continues and he said, this includes you, people like you and me, and the Lord. We were once so far away from God. We actually were his enemies, and we hated him, and we were separated from him by our evil thoughts and actions. Yet now, God has brought us back as his friend. It's for all of us, and we can be changed from hating God to coming to him as his friend. He has done this through the death on the cross of his own human body, and now as a result, Christ has brought us into the very presence of God. You and I can be in the very presence of God, and we can be standing before God with nothing left against us, nothing left that God could even try us for. Oh, hold on, Ron. That sounds too good to be true. There's got to be a catch. Well, there is. And the catch is verse 23. The only condition is that we, you and I, fully believe the truth. Remember, Jesus said, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. So we fully believe the truth, Jesus. We stand in it steadfast and firm, strong in the Lord, convinced of the good news, the gospel, that Jesus died for us, and never shifting from trusting Him to save us. And then it's a gift. Well, now for us to receive a gift, three requirements need to be met. Guess what? The gift has to exist. You can't have a gift if it's not available, if no one has it. So, the gift does exist. Remember, the wages of sin is death, but the gift of God is eternal life through Jesus Christ our Lord. Well, okay, so there's a gift, but then the gift has to be offered. If it's not offered, it's not yours to take. But Jesus said in Matthew 11:28, come to me, all of you that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. You see, Jesus has a gift, and He offers it to us. And then thirdly, we make the decision to accept or reject the gift. You know, somebody says, here, you want this? No, it's not ours. But if we accept it, it is ours. So how does this work with Jesus and that? Well, let's look at a good example. Remember when Jesus was crucified, Luke tells us that two others who were criminals were led away to be executed with Jesus. And when they came to the place called the skull, they crucified Him. And the criminals were also crucified, one on the right and the other on the left. Now, it's interesting. These two criminals had been in the same jail. They heard the same stories about Jesus. Everything they had was the same. And then one of the criminals hanging there insulted Jesus by saying, so you're really the Messiah, huh? Okay, well, save yourself and us. All he wanted to do was he heard about Jesus' miracles. He wanted to get down off the cross. That's all he wanted. But the other criminal who heard the same thing, both heard the same thing, he scolded him. He said, don't you fear God at all? Can't you see that we're condemned in the same way that He is? Our punishment is fair. We're getting what we deserve. But this man hasn't done anything wrong. And I think one of the things we need to do to accept that gift of Jesus is we have to realize that we are sinners and that we can't get out of it. God's got the remedy, we have to do it His way. So, this man, he was telling him that Jesus hadn't done anything wrong. And then he said, Jesus, remember me when you enter your kingdom. Are you kidding me? This career criminal wants Jesus to take him to heaven when he dies? Where does he get that kind of idea? Well, he listened to what he heard about Jesus, and Jesus confirmed it. Jesus said to him, I can guarantee this truth. Today you will be with me in paradise. Jesus is telling this criminal who turned to Him and asked Jesus to remember him that before the sun sets this afternoon, you are going to be with me in paradise. This career criminal accepted the gift of eternal life that Jesus offers. So how do we get this gift of eternal life? Well, like the criminal, we need to ask Jesus. We realize that on our own we'll never make heaven. And we turn to Jesus and ask Him to save us. And we turn from the way we have been living doing things our way to doing things God's way. That would include spending time with God, asking and learning what God would want us to do. Probably getting a New Testament and begin reading the Gospels, probably starting in John, and perhaps getting baptized. But still coming into asking Jesus to save us. Father, we thank you that the gospel message is still going forth today. Laura went to college, went down to Missouri, and did works down there. And we thank you, Father, for that example. And all of us would like to be with her where she is, up in heaven now. But Jesus is the only one who can take us there. Father, I ask that we would all be willing to ask Jesus to take us to heaven when we die, and then live for him now during this time. Well, the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you, be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you shalom. Everything you need in Jesus' name. Amen.